Hello everybody, welcome to Helvetic Arms. We're out here based in Switzerland, and today we have an interesting little pistol caliber carbine, a little SMG out here for you guys. This is the FAMAE SAF. This is a Chilean submachine gun built by FAMAE in Chile. This thing was designed and produced in 1993, and it's a 9mm. This one is semi-auto here. This is a 9mm version of the FAMAE SAF. They also have a 40 caliber version. This thing was developed for use with the police and military of Chile, and they also built it for export through several other countries, not too many, but lots of countries in South America, and even some in Europe like Portugal. So Argentina, Chile, Paraguay, Brazil, places like that do use this. So if you're in those parts of the world, this might be a more common sight for you. But out here in Switzerland and even in the US, these aren't that common. And even less so in the US because of the 1989 ban they have out there for foreign-made produced assault weapon looking things. And I guess these days you could probably bring this thing in as some sort of pistol with a brace, but I just haven't seen too many of those in the firearms world. This example here was imported by Brugger and Tomet. They have their import markings over here. And yeah, this thing is pretty neat. It feeds from a double feed magazine, which is a good magazine design. These are polymer magazines. This thing has 30 rounds in each magazine, and they clip together like SIG 550 magazines. So you can kind of just take these off, put these on as you please. It's kind of nice because not all weapons you can do this, who do have clippable magazine switches of dubious value. Some people don't like that, but you can actually clip this while the gun has a magazine in it. And some of them will get stuck on some of this hardware here, you know, on different weapon systems. But on this one, you can do that, which is really nice. The only downside about this this magazine, I think, I mean, I haven't tested it for, you know, brittleness or whatever. Maybe it breaks easily, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But these are extremely rare to find and very expensive, which might contribute to why more people don't have these, because the magazines themselves are very difficult to find, and there are very few other options out there. I know that BNT did make a Uzi magazine that was modified to fit in here, so basically it had some sort of little plate welded to it over here, and they were steel magazines, so they're pretty durable, but the only downside I would say is that they didn't have a blast round hold open like these do. They kind of just slid forward, so that you lost the feature of the weapon. But this thing is a closed bolt SMG, so this is kind of in that small niche that not too many in the 1990s and 1993, there weren't too many closed bolt SMGs out there. We have what, the MP5, the 9mm ARs, the Bison, the Russian Bison. We don't have too many 9mm closed bolt SMGs, and so this thing in the 1990s I think was a pretty special thing. We had maybe the Sight Spectre, I guess we can count that, but this thing is kind of, I think this thing was actually a really great system, especially for its time, and it has a lot of features that even some of these other 9mm subguns don't have, such as a last round bolt hold open. We have a bolt release. This thing operates the same way as a SIG 540, and the reason for that is that it was actually based off the SIG 540. So for those who don't know, the SIG 540 is actually the standard service weapon of Chile, and it's produced by FAMAE as well. And when they got the license to build the SIG 540, they designed this thing completely based around that as well. And so we have a lot of similar features, such as the handguards, the front gas block, a bunch of these things aesthetically are similar, and in function as well. The same type of sights, front sight is the same. Folding stock as well. We have a folding stock that just kind of holds in place there with some tension. There's nothing really holding it in, but this is the same stock as the SIG 540 would use. And you can actually interchange this stock and this pistol grip with the SIG 540, so we even have some parts interchangeability there. We have the trigger. The trigger is actually quite nice. It's probably the nicest. I'm going to go ahead and say that this is the nicest out of the box SMG trigger, probably period right now, even till this day. It's just it's really light, it's really smooth. I did have some issues with it though, safety wise, and I'll explain that later. But when it is in operating good condition, safe condition, this trigger is phenomenal. It's just like, it's basically a SIG 540 trigger that they just put into this thing. So this thing is actually a very accurate weapon that you can easily make hits out to 100 meters with. So let me show you a little bit about the sights here. We have a 5 here, so for 50 meters. Then we have a 10 here for 100 meters. And then we have a 15 here for 150 meters. And what's interesting is that this actually is a drum sight that would have has space for four holes here, for 4 sights, but there's only 3. They just decided that that was enough. So, maybe less is more. So, and what is also interesting is it actually goes from 5 to 10, but instead of going to 15 like that, you actually have to go back to 5 and then to 15. So it's almost as if you're supposed to use this on 5, which is the CQB sight, and either go to 100 meters or 150 meters, and then this is kind of your middle point. We have optic mounting options, so we have a rail. You can mount a rail on this dovetail system, which is very similar to the SIG 550 and SIG 540 series. Kind of dovetails in there, and then you have a little plunger on the back to kind of put tension on it, so theoretically it'll hold 0 if you take off the sight, or if you take off the scope mount. The layout is identical to a 540. Even the selector switch is very similar, very easy to operate. This is real easy to operate. We have the pistol grip, which has a little storage compartment in it. So you can put mints in here, you can put chewing gum. The SIG 540 has a gas block in it and a spring in front and stuff, and this doesn't. This is direct blowback, and so it looks like it has a little gas system here, but it's not. Actually, this is, strangely enough, just for its aesthetics, so this is just empty here. This is really handy. It's a really handy little SMG. The pins, takedown pins and stuff, are just like the SIG 550 style. We have a little push button. So this thing was actually based on the 540, right? But it was designed after the SIG 550 was already in production. So it took some design characteristics from both the 540, but also the 550. So we have these little pins here, which when you press them here, they release this little this keeper here. So that's a SIG 550 design put on this. 2 little sling loops we have here. If you wanted to sling on the stock, I'm sure you just kind of finagle something on there. We have a threaded barrel, so we can put suppressors on here. Here's a little thread. I don't know what the thread pitch on this is. I'm not sure. Never looked into it, but you can put a suppressor on this. Obviously, has a little cover on there, and yeah, pretty handy little thing. I know that these are pretty popular in Canada because FAMAE has a bigger market in Canada. So I have seen people have these in Canada. But other than that, I don't know of it being a very popular pistol caliber carbine, which is kind of like this. That's the style now, right? That's what's cool. Everyone wants a pistol caliber carbine. You know, they have the KR9 now. They have a bunch of the BNT guns. And it's interesting that this is not really talked about, because this is a really neat design and a really neat concept, and it seems to work well, and it looks cool. I think it's probably one of the best looking, in my personal opinion, you know, this is all relative, but this is one of the coolest looking ones. So let's go on to disassembly. Oh yeah, by the way, we had some camera issues, so we had to film this on several occasions, so you're going to see me change pants. So that's going to be it's a huge bonus for you guys. That's usually not going to happen, so look out for that. So just like the SIG 550 series, SIG 540 series, we have a little latch here which disengages the bolt. So we're going to do that. And now we have a sort of a little charging handle here. And kind of unlike the other SIG series, what the first thing that we do need to do is we need to take off this lower handguard, the upper handguard, and to do that, I feel like the easiest way is actually just to take the whole upper off. It does hinge open like this, so you can go ahead and see it and look inside there. We have 2 captive pins. This one, sometimes I just take it out completely, but this pin here is captive. And it's interesting how there's like a little button on top. And this button, when you push it, will deactivate these little holders here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this. We're going to push this back. Turn this around for you guys. Remove the lower handguard. Remove the upper handguard. And here we actually have this this kind of I don't know if you guys can see that. It's a very interesting system where they have this little bar. We'll push back here on the spring, which is also different from the 540, because the 540, the spring, the recoil spring, is actually in the gas tube. So in this weapon, it's actually behind the bolt. So we're going to push the bolt forward. This comes out, and here we have this little kind of a little pin that goes in here. And once the pin's out, we just slide it out like this, grab it, and then it slides through. So there's the pin. And what's interesting here is one side, I'm going to take the recoil spring out and the guide rod. This pin has one side that has a little bit of a checker mark on it, which is a little bit larger, and you got to make sure you get it in the larger side here. So this would go in like this. So then we get the bolt out. There's our bolt. Pretty simple. No locking mechanism, nothing, just straight blowback. And then we have our receiver. Here we go. Firing pin, I'm not going to take the firing pin out right now, but there's 2 little pins here, one here and one here, holding the, what I'm assuming one is the extractor and one is the firing pin. Also, the front sight is adjustable for height, and the rear sight for windage. In the lower, not too much, just a regular semi-auto lower here. We have looking just, looks just like the SIG series. Very simple. We got 2 little springs down here, and a welded in little box guider for the mag well here, because the original 540 has rock-in magazines, and this one is like this. And right here we have the bolt that we use to take apart, to take off the stock. And there's only one bolt holding the stock on, and another pin down here. So if you want to replace the stock, that out comes basically directly off. And that is a basic field strip of the FAMAE SAF. It is quite, it's very handy. And I would say that this is kind of I don't know about an underdog, but this is kind of I guess underrated, I want to say, and unknown, really, carbine, or SMG, depending on what version you have. But this thing, it is very short. It is shorter than the MP5 by probably 2-3 inches. It is a little, because of the size, I think it is a little bit lighter than the MP5, but I'm not sure. It's not very light. It is a stamped steel construction. It does have, look at this barrel profile. This is not a super light weapon like a BNT9, TP9, BNT TP9. One of the interesting things, however, that I found out about this thing is, well, it's a dangerous defect, I would say, that when these are new, I'm not sure if they're all like this. When this one was new, when the trigger was backwards, excuse me, not when the trigger was backwards. When the trigger was pulled partially and released before it broke, let's say that you were about to shoot a target and, you know, the firing range instructor said stop or whatever, and you released it, the second you would go back to pull the trigger, any movement would set it off, would trigger it. And it would, basically what I think it is the trigger would slide back onto its release point, and it just wouldn't, it would stay there when you would release the trigger. And so any movement, and since the trigger is so light, would just set it off. So definitely not drop proof. I mean, yeah, even worse than drop proof. I remember I tried it a few times just to see what was really going on. I would pull it a little bit of the way, release it, I would hit the gun, even while it was on safety. I would just tap it like that, and it would go off. And that is completely unacceptable, obviously. So I had the gunsmith look at it, and he basically just made it so that it slides off that shelf and has a longer period on that shelf. So the trigger is not noticeably harder, but it is, as far as I'm concerned, it's fixed for now. But that is an unacceptable issue, and I'm not sure if this is just a quality control issue in FAMAE, or if this is a kind of a lemon situation, but that was, I've never heard of that issue before, but I had it, so there it is. All right, so something else I want to show you guys is how does this compare to the MP5, the world-class MP5, which is the standard for a good SMG, a good carbine of that type, a 9mm carbine. How does this compare to it? And they are made for the same purpose. So I think that conceptually, in theory, this thing has quite a few advantages that the MP5 does not. You know, coming out in the 90s, this came in 1993, so what other platforms are there that have this same kind of deal going and that does compare with the MP5? There's not that many. There's really not that many. So some things that I think that this would have, you know, let's say technical advantages over the MP5 is it has a last round hold open, right? That is huge, last round hold open, so that you know when you're out of ammo before you're out of ammo and you have a, you know, dead man's click and stuff. So we have also a bolt release, pushing up on this bolt release, there you go, and that slams the bolt home. That's pretty simple. We have a very quick selector. I'd say quicker than the MP5 by a bit. We also have magazines that, you know, they're of the same paddle release sort, but these are, you know, these are a little easier to get into on the first try, just with less training, I would say. You know, this, you just get these in, and you just know when they're in. They're just in, you know, so they're just in. What can I say? So, and you know, the MP5, you have to jiggle it around sometimes to get it in there. You know, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you do have to get it in. It's not as smooth. We also have size over the MP5. This thing is shorter than the MP5. Hey, I mean, this is not a big deal unless you're in certain conditions, but winter trigger guard, excuse me. We still have the retainability. You know, we don't have 3-lug, but we do have the retainability for suppressors. We also have the ability to mount optics. So here, like I showed you before, we have a dovetail system. So you put this back here, and then you push it forward, and you screw this back, and then put tension on it. So we can mount optics on it. And this thing is heavy. This thing is like I don't know. I don't want to say it's half a pound, but I think it might be half a pound. But the MP5 mounting systems aren't super light, all the time either. So there's that. Especially with the claw mounts that they were using back in the day. What else do we have compared to the MP5? We have a better trigger than the MP5 when it works, right? When it's safe. But if it's working right, this trigger is better than an MP5 trigger, I would say. I would say it's straight up better. The only advantages that I guess an MP5 trigger would have to this is maybe, this high stress, hostage scenario. You really don't want to shoot someone by accident, I guess, but I would argue training, would trump that. But that's take that for face value. So I think this is a really good competitor to MP5. And what I'm going to do right now is actually show you guys the competitor. So here we go. Here we have a Swiss-made MP5 copy. This is an MP5 by BNT. Technically called the BT96. So this is identical to an MP5 in every way. What do we have here? We have a this is a Legend. Sure, this is great, but there are a few things that that I would say on paper and even on practice that that do detract from the design. And one of those things is the speed of the reload. It just isn't as fast. There's nobody can say that the reload on MP5 is fast. Nobody can say that. You can be fast at it for an MP5, but it's not fast. And so let's try that. Let's try just a real basic non-time, just a reload. You can just watch and see the operations I have to do. So let's assume it's shooting. I'm going to do the fast version of the reload too, the one where you just pull it back. I'm not going to lock it back. So assuming that you have your rounds downloaded to 28 rounds, otherwise that will not work. So you're shooting, bang, 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 then it goes click, right? We have dead man's click, so because the bolt doesn't lock open on the last round. That already there is, in my opinion, kind of a problem. Then we take it out, right? Go get a new mag, and then we're there. But it's not slow, but let's try out the FAMAE. So we go like this, bang, bang, bang. Last round, hold open. So you already feel it. You can feel it that it's that the last round has gone. So that you immediately go to pedal release, take a new mag, put it in. There's less. It's just it's good to go. I enjoy that. I think that it's a good system. There's that. And here's the thing I was talking about the MP5. For those who don't know, when you take the MP5 mag and you stick it in, it doesn't always stay in. Actually, unless you know how to get it to stay in, it won't stay in. You have to lock it back. So let's say you put it in here, it's just going to come out. But unless I lock it back like that, it's not. That's just an extra step, and you do get used to it, and training overcomes everything. But that's just one more thing. So there's that. And then we have the MP5 trigger, real heavy, like 10, 11 pound trigger. I don't know, maybe 9, I don't know. Compared to 5 pounds, maybe 6, when it works, might add. So what am I trying to say about all this? Would I take the FAMAE over the MP5? Honestly, probably not. The MP5 is the Legend. It works really well. You have to just know its quirks, and it just runs smooth. It has a really nice balance to it, but there's the quality too. If you can get a good quality made MP5 versus this is, I'm not saying it's not good quality, but the issues that I had with it are there's a huge issue. So I don't know, that was just like a huge issue. So if it works, it's great. If that is one of the issues, I don't know. Reliability, they seem to be both pretty good reliability. This has snappier recoil. So that is a disadvantage to this system. is that the MP5 has a roll-it-a-day blowback system, so that is gonna, and a really light bolt. So the MP5 has less recoil, and also I think it's heavier. So this has less recoil than the FAMAE does. But this is not to say that it's bad. This is a good shooting gun too. So there's that. What I'm going to do now for you guys is I'm going to weigh this thing. All right, so it's in kilos. 2.998. All right, so we're looking at 3 kilo, an exactly 3 kilo gun here. And it's not fair. We're going to weigh the MP5 anyways, but it's not fair because we got a bunch of accessories on here, and no, it's just not. But we're going to do it because we're going to do it. All right, we're looking at 3.65 kilos. So, yeah, there's that. We have something else too. I want to show you guys something else interesting about this. Here is a SIG 553. So for those who don't know, this is a SIG 55X platform. This is just a short SIG 550. I just want to show you guys the similarities between these two systems and how someone who's running the SIG platform, obviously the SIG 540 platform, but even the SIG 550 platform could just pick this up, and it's just no-brainer training switch, which is a huge deal for police and military. So imagine the whole military and police is running SIG 540s and the manual of arms of the SIG 540. It's not at all like the MP5. If you start issuing those guys MP5, you're going to have to do a lot more training than you will have to do if you just give them a 9mm version of the same gun. So I can see the big training benefit there as well. So here, let's look at some similarities. We have this thingadoo here. It's like the same place, same working. We have the same grip, both folding stocks. The sights are basically the same. We have that open style here, open style sight. We have the front sight's a little different, but not too. Actually, the only difference in the front sight, I think, is the hood. This seems to be pretty similar design in the lower part, except for the exception of the SIG 553 and SIG 550 series has a night sight built in there, a tritium sight. Same mounting style. You don't get the Swiss cross on the FAMAE though. That's a huge point deduction from the FAMAE. So that's unfortunate for the FAMAE. Look at that. Look at that. Yeah. So what else do we have here? We have the lowers and uppers separate the same way. The bolt release is the same. You push it up to release it and push it down to lock it. Same for this. The only thing that I would like to mention is different is when you separate them. This thing actually stays to the bottom, so that's a big design change there. And this thing stays to the top, so the bolt release stays on the upper, so that's interesting. What else do we have here? The other side. Well, first of all, we have a paddle magazine release. This is a rock in mag, so that's a little different, but a rock and SMG mag would just be weird. We have the same whole takedown little, that little charging handle deal going. The disassembly is the same except for the gas tube, and this is direct blowback, so there's none of that. Ambidextrous here, not here, but that's kind of a 550. This is more of a modernization. But this is like, this is a very similar gun. So if you have this, you can just pick this up and just run with it, which I think is really cool. You even have storage down here, just like this is a little hard to get out, but this opens up just like that one does. One thing that's interesting, I forgot to mention earlier, is one of the features that the FAMAE has and the 550 have is a winter trigger guard, a winter folding trigger guard. Okay, so something that I noticed actually earlier was that this winter folding trigger guard for use with gloves goes both ways, whereas this one here only folds out to the left. So I don't know. I don't know if that's a 540 thing, but that's what it does. But that's in itself interesting thing here. So the MP5 doesn't have a winter trigger guard. So there you go. there, that's, you know, so those are the similarities there. But I don't know what else there is to say about this. That's the FAMAE SAF for you. There's not a whole lot of info on these guns, and I don't know, maybe if I lived in South America or something, this would be more common, you know, to see and whatever. But I think these things are really cool. I think they're underrated if you don't have those ridiculous trigger problems. That aside, I think these things are fantastic. They work really well. They are handy. They are small, compact, accurate. You can easily hit targets out to 100 meters with this. This thing is good to go, in my opinion. And it's definitely a competitor from the 1990s that the MP5 would have to be reckoned with. So, especially with, you know, I'm sure this costs less to produce than an MP5 by a lot. So this is also attractive to lower budget military and police units. Well, there we have it, guys. The FAMAE SAF. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.